Hello and a very good morning to you all, my friends. Lovely to be with you again, beaming into your schools nationwide, around the world, wherever you're watching. Always a pleasure to be with you. My name is Mr Dilly, of course. This is me. If I've never met you before, this is me, and it's good to be with you, as I said. Now, today is a show celebrating National Story Week 2025. Got a fantastic show lined up for you today. It's a show filled with adventure, imagination, and of course, some brilliant storytelling. Maybe you do, maybe you don't know what National Storytelling Week is, but I'll tell you a bit more about it. It's basically about celebrating, of course, the magic of stories, funny enough. And stories, well, they entertain us, don't they? They connect us, they help us discover more about ourselves and understand more about the world around us. And I think they help us see the world through someone else's eyes, and by doing so, as I said, understand more things about ourselves and discover who we are. So, what do we have coming up? Well, 3 brilliant guests, each bringing their own fantastic world of stories to share with you guys. Yeah, you at the back and you over there. Very, very good. Round of applause, round of applause. Keep it all going as we welcome, first of all, Jacob North. Round of applause, Jacob North. We welcome Jenny McLachlan. Round of applause, Jenny McLachlan. And last but not least, Jordan Glover. Round of applause, Jordan Glover. Give us all a big wave, a big hello.
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 So lovely to be with you all today for National Storytelling Week, and great to have you all with us. We'll be jumping into a bit more about your own stories and your latest books a little bit later on. But it'd be really fascinating for all of us, I think, just to kind of discover a little bit about, when you were younger, if you had any favorite stories or books that yourselves. It might just been like a short story, maybe in a whole book. So let's start. Jacob, what about yourself? Did you have anything that kind of really sort of grabbed you when you were younger?
Absolutely. One of my absolute favorite books of all time is Warrior Cats Into the Wild. For those of you who know Warrior Cats, you might think this doesn't look like the usual book. This is the Dutch version. My English version is back with my parents, so this is what I have in my home. I love this book so much. I'm reading it in Dutch now as well, and it's still just as good as the first time. It's about a cat, and he leaves his human home and goes into the woods nearby, where he joins with some warrior cat clans, and there's betrayal and murder and brewing wars between the clans. It's such a good read, and there's loads of these books, so if you get into it, you've got plenty to get through.
How did you discover that book? Was it just sort of something you came across by yourself? Did someone recommend it to you? How did that come about?
I think it was in the school library.
Yeah.
And
then
it was. Yeah, it was. I think it's one of the ones they had out on like the shelf or display or something. And I thought, oh, I love cats. So I was like, that looks good. Got into it and then never looked back, read the whole series.
And this amazing thing, isn't it, about some of the children watching might have experienced this. Some of them may not have, is that, and sometimes you can take a few years when you suddenly find a book and you grab it and you're like, oh my goodness, this is me, and you keep reading it. I guess that was the same for you for that particular book and series. You just kind of like immediately sort of spoke to you about sort of stories, and it sort of reflects yourself back to you, doesn't it, in terms of what you do. Jordan, what about yourself? Any particular thing that kind of really sort of, I don't know, inspired you when you were younger?
Yeah, so now as an adult, I love reading fantasy books, anything with a little bit of magic, and this is Sabriel by Garth Nix, which was probably the first fantasy book that got me started. Yeah. It's about a girl called Sabriel who is at a boarding school, and her father goes missing, and she has to travel into the Old Kingdom and learn some quite old magic to try and save him. And there is also a cat in this one, Jacob. I think he's a demon cat. He's a bit sassy. One of my favorite characters ever. So yes, and this is the start of a trilogy. So once you finish the first one, there's still 2 more to go.
Which is brilliant. Maybe it's one of those same cats, Jacob. They just sort of wandered into another story, just sort of come across. So it's good that, and as I asked Jacob, Jordan, was that something that you just, how did you go about finding that book? Was that something that just it was there, or you got recommended? How did that come about?
So occasionally I would get some pocket money for being good, and this was back in the days where you could buy a book for £4.99. And I remember going into W.H. Smith's, not Waterstones, W.H. Smith's in my local town, and it was just there on the shelf, so I knew I had to have it.
And then immediately picked it up, and obviously got straight into it, a bit like Jacob with Wonder Cats. Okay, Jenny, what about yourself? Anything sort of similar or a whole different thing?
I've got my book here, but can I just say, when I was a teacher and when I've been in schools, Warrior Cats is big. if you get a school where they're into warrior cats, it sweeps the school. It's really fun, and you are quite left out if you're not into warrior cats at that point, because it divides people, doesn't it? You're either into warrior cats or you're not. My book's one I read when I was quite young. It's this one here. It's American. Someday it's called, and I chose this because I loved it when I was younger. I love it still, and it's about a girl who imagines the amazing things that will happen to her someday. And I like this because I'm a dreamer. I think most writers are, aren't they? So, for example, she imagines one day that she catches a ball that no one else can catch. And I think I used to find it quite interesting as well, because these were things I didn't really know about. Baseball, that was interesting for me. And then someday she's very bored at home, and then somebody delivers a big pile of books for her. And possibly my favourite was someday she's allowed to decorate the Christmas tree on her own, and it turns sideways on without her brother helping. And she puts her dog on the tree. But the page that did it for me was this. It's someday I'm going to walk through the same house and find a room I've never found before. So there she is coming up the stairs.
That's a great idea, though.
And there she finds the room. And I used to try and find a room in my terrace house, which I'd never found before. It didn't take very long to realize there wasn't one, but I think this is what books give you. You know how sometimes you can be a bit bored by normal life, real life, and books just give you that door into another world in your own home that you didn't know was there. And so I feel like I've achieved this dream with writing as well. So there we are.
That's it. I've never actually seen that book before. It's a beautiful book, that.
I just Googled it actually, but to find out about how to pronounce the author, Charlotte Zolotow, and she's quite a well-known American children's author from the 60s. Yeah.
That's the wonderful one thing. My one, which we might have all heard of, it was Where the Wild Things Are.
Yeah.
But just because I just remember going in, I don't know how old I was, going into the library and finding that book and sitting down, and it had that mixture of it was kind of slightly frightening, but also just sort of magical, and that whole idea of obviously like a lot of obviously going to this other land and then sort of becoming king and coming back, and then you sort of wake up, which I know is done a lot in stories, but I don't know, it's always such a wonderful book. So anyway, that was mine from when I was a kid. But listen, we're going to Jacob and Jordan. We're going to be speaking to Jacob and Jordan more later on about their books. And all of the guests today will be joining us for kind of a chat at the end as well. So we're going to stay with Jenny. Going to say goodbye to Jacob for now. Say goodbye to Jordan for now. Jacob, I give you a round of applause. Jordan, a round of applause. And we'll see you both very, very soon. Thank you very much, Jacob. Thank you, Jordan. It's me and you, Jenny. We're here.
Hi.
Let's go. Let's go. So it's brilliant. Now, you may or may not have seen Jenny on a couple of previous Mr Dilly meets a while ago now, wasn't it? Talking about her wonderful books. Now, let's have a look. I've got the whole wedge of them here. So let's go. So
have I actually?
So have you. So let's hold them up. So let's start with the first one. First one.
I always just carry them around.
So here we go. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, I can't really see it on my screen. Land of Roar began it all from this series. Then we had, of course, I got the right order, haven't I? Yes, Return to Roar. Look at this. I told you they're very popular. Then we have The Battle for Roar. And now with Dragon Riders.
So gold.
So listen, this is obviously the fourth book in the series. It must be amazing to have written something that people love so much and care about so much that not only do you get that first sort of book and then the trilogy, but now you're sort of returning to it again because it's so loved. How does that feel to sort of
great?
Yeah.
Fantastic. When I did always want to write 4, and then I thought, well, maybe I'll write 3, but I'm actually writing 6, so there are 2 more to come after this one. And what I've done rather cunningly, I think, is you can read Dragon Riders of Roar after reading these 3 books. But if you like the sound of this and you think, nah, I don't want to read those yet, I'd rather go straight in with this one, you can begin this because it's actually the start of a new series within Roar. So you could read those 3 first or just begin straight off with Dragon Riders of Roar. Feels lovely.
It's a really lovely thing, and it obviously comes out of your mind. So this is obviously National Storytelling Week. Thinking about stories and how you came up with that, the Roar idea as a series, you know, how is that? Do you think it's now kind of, obviously it's evolved in terms of the story, but is it changed over the course of, you know, the time that you've been writing it? Do you think in terms of your approach to it, maybe, or whatever?
So the initial idea with the Land of Raw, for anyone who doesn't know, is that there are two twins, Arthur and Rose, and they, when they were very little, used to play amazing games in their granddad's attic. And this is very much based on what I used to do with my cousins in my nan's attic, where basically, as long as we didn't annoy the grown-ups, we could do whatever we liked. I say it was her attic. I'm going to be totally honest. It was her cellar. We used to play in her cellar, but I turned it into the attic in the book. And what they discover when they get older is this game they used to love playing most of all, which was called Raw, which was a world with dragons in it and ninja wizards and merwitches. It wasn't actually a game, but they all came to life, and they can get to the world by crawling inside a folding camp bed. And then they can explore the world. The villain is there, and they have adventures in this world. And Dragon Riders of Raw, I don't really ever like revisiting the exact same world. I want it to get bigger each time. And at the start of this book, Rose, who you can just see flying on the red dragon in there, she can't get to Raw, so she makes up a story about a place in Raw called the Dragonlands. I hope I'm not running ahead of myself here, Mr. Dilly, but I'm just going to go for it.
You go for it. This is great.
No, I'm off.
You're off. Here we go. I'll come back in a minute.
Have a cup of tea. So Rose can't get to Raw, so she writes about Raw instead, and she invents, she gets carried away, a bit like I do when I write. She invents a world called the Dragonlands, hidden in the north of Raw, and then she thinks, there's going to be a school there for dragon riders, where children, sounds dangerous, it is, are taught to ride huge dragons. And of course, she makes herself the star pupil. She even gives herself a special name, Rosetta Trout. And the teachers are terrifying. The lessons are terrifying. There are witches marauding. It doesn't matter. It's just a story. She's only writing a story in the attic. Arthur finds the book. He makes fun of it. And as everyone knows, never make fun of what someone's written. Rose goes wild. The book gets shoved in the folding camp bed and the whole world bursts into life. And Arthur and Rose have to go to the school Arthur has to go to the school his sisters invented, basically.
I think that was an incredibly amazing synopsis of the book without giving anything away. That was very, very good. I applaud you.
Thank you very much.
How much, you talking about Rosa, how much of your, you said about your childhood book and what you like reading, but how much of your self, either now or as a child, is in that character, or is any of it?
Absolutely tons. I made up my own school. When I was 11, I didn't like secondary school at all. I was very shy.
Right. Yeah.
I wasn't the monster you see before you now. I was super shy. So I decided to make up my own school. And I drew pictures of all the classrooms, maps obsessively. I did a timetable where it was basically 90% art and looking after small baby animals. And I made dorm rooms, and it was incredible. I loved it. And my mum got me a ring binder, Lever Arch was a massive ring binder file from a jumble sale. And I stored my school in this folder, and I wanted to go there so bad. And so with this book, I've been able to sort of make it come to life. I get to go to school. My school wasn't as dangerous as Rose's school. Rose is braver than me, much braver.
That's an amazing thing that you did. I think it's an amazing thing, But that's certainly a lot of stuff you do as a kid, especially good stuff, sort of comes back sort of later on. Even stories and books, they sort of like you read and you put them down, and then as you said, you think, I remember that book, and you go back to it.
Children listening, these things that they're amazed by the things they're going to use when they're adults. I
had something the other day, and I don't know if it made any sense to the kids watching because they're not old enough, but bear it in mind for when you get older, is that you get older and eventually you go backwards to go forwards. And I love that expression. You sort of go look back when you were younger to sort of go forward as you get older. We've got a couple of school questions for you, Jenny, and then I know you're going to give us I've got another question about the book, and they're going to give us a reading as well. Yes. And Jenny is also back for a draw on later on. So let's have the first one up here. So Eldon Grove Academy in Hartlepool, thank you for your question. Who is your favourite character from Raw and why? Which is quite a tricky one. Thanks for your question.
Okay. I think my favourite character is this guy, Croaky, the villain in Raw. He's made himself a twig puppy there because villains are really fun to write about. You never really need to think about what the villain is going to say, I find. So my favourite characters are often the ones I know so well, I can tell exactly what they're going to say. Being bad in a book, as in not in real life, is really good fun. So I enjoy being croaky in the book.
Freaky character though. Brilliant.
Yeah, he's a
We got another
character.
one. So here we go,
Yeah.
another one. This is from Watt CV Primary School in Rotherham. Thank you again for your question. How do you decide what you're going to write about? I guess there's two parts of this. And what does the planning stage look like? So let's go for the first part. How do you decide what you're going to write about? I guess they're linked up.
I about once a week, I'll say to my children or my husband, I've had a brilliant idea for a book. I haven't usually, but probably in the whole year, one of those brilliant ideas is a really good idea. Yeah. And it sticks in my head and it grows. And I honestly think that this is the same probably for most people. This one idea you realize is great and there are problems with it and it's getting better and better. And my planning stage is, your teachers be really pleased with this and you won't be really pleased with this. It's huge. So I plan in my head for weeks. Then I plan on I can show you. I plan in big notebooks about this size. That was a cartoon I was doing. And I might draw pictures actually to help me plan as I'm going along. And then when it's all in my head, I'll type it up as a plan. So my plan is about massive. So if my book's 60,000 words long, my plan will be about 10,000 words long. And then I start to write. But here's the crazy thing. When I actually write, I barely ever need to look at the plan because by that point, the whole story's in my head and I don't need the plan.
Do you ever find, you're saying you're doing that sort of process of, writing, that planning stage, because obviously the time pressures of coming out with one book and then another, that first one, I presume you have a bit longer to do. And then does it get more difficult in terms of that? Or are you more so familiar with it that it's easier?
No, I've never found. I think I've written big books now, 13. And you'd have thought it would get easier, but no, it depends. Usually it takes me between 6 months and a year to write each book, but usually when you've added on all the editing, it becomes about 9 months on average, I think. And sadly, the hardest bit for me of writing a book is always the first chapters where you've got to introduce everything, the setting, the characters, the plot, without appearing to introduce anything. That's the hardest bit.
And I always find it amazing with I suppose it's like your trilogies of films, but trilogies of books and things like that is whatever you write in that first one is then got to make sense, for the second and the third one, and he's got to go, oh, I wish I'd have do you ever get that bit when you sort of get to the third one, it's published and you've sort of gone, oh, if I'd have mentioned that in the first book, you know what I mean?
Well, something I did in this book at the very end is Arthur, Wininja, he hatches a baby dragon. Here it is. And he calls it Arthur because Arthur's his favourite person. So there's a baby dragon called Arthur and a main character called Arthur. So then when I began to write this, I thought I can't have two characters called Arthur. So I had to rename the dragon, baby dragon, and come up with a reason why I did it. So yes, I do sometimes regret the decisions I made.
It does that. Now you're going to give us a little taster from Dragon Riders of Raw. So shall I hand over to you to give us that and tell us a little bit about where it is in the context and stuff? But this is Jenny with a little snippet for you from Dragon Riders of Raw. Here we go.
Okay, so I'm reading something which will be quite familiar to all of you, and it's when you find yourself in a lesson at school and you're a bit out of your depth because either you don't know what's going on, you are off sick, you don't really know what's happening, and the teacher doesn't understand and won't listen. Only in this case, Arthur has to get on a dragon's back and fly through a very dangerous assault course. So he's just arrived at the dragon school. He's with his best friend Wininja and his sister Rose. Everyone thinks that Rose is the best dragon rider ever, and so they don't need any help. And they're taken to meet their dragons, and they're being handed out their own dragon to ride. And the teacher's called Tregaron. Who's next? Wonders Tregaron, drumming his 3 fingers on his chin. Tricky. His eyes flick between us and the 2 remaining dragons. One, Sargassum, is ink blue and covered in spikes. He also has a horn at the end of his blunt snout and narrow silver eyes. The other dragon is called Grackle, and there's something about her that sends a chill through me. Her scales are smooth, the colour of dirty snow, and her lips are pulled back, showing multiple rows of jagged teeth. Her golden eyes glare at me. Win, you take Sargassum. Arthur, you'll be riding Grackle. Right. Climb on your dragon's back and remember what I told you last lesson. My heart sinks as Grackle seems to grin maliciously at me. But Master Tregaron, he shakes his head irritated. Tregaron will do. Right, sorry, Tregaron, we weren't in the last lesson. Can you tell us what we missed? He slaps me on the back. Very modest, Trout, and it's good that you don't want to show off around your new classmates. But we've all heard what a fabulous rider Rose is, and I'm sure she's passed plenty of tips on to you. Arthur, Wynne says as we walk forwards, my dragon is literally all spikes. Where's my bum supposed to go? At least yours hasn't got so many teeth she can't shut her mouth, I say as I edge closer to Grackle. Or got spikes that look like gnawed bones. Grackle looks like she's had a few violent encounters with something even bigger than her, if that's possible. Some of her teeth are missing, and a couple of her spikes have been snapped off. A jagged scar tears through the scales from her neck to her belly. Should we just go for it? Asks Wynne, reaching for Sargassum. The dragon hisses at him. Glancing round, I see that everyone else is clambering up the sides of their dragons, using their spikes as a ladder. I guess so. I step closer to Grackle, her eyes narrow. Her hobelabo, I say, wabai nabami obiz Arthur. Grackle starts to growl deep in her belly, smoke pours from her nose. Stop chatting and get on that dragon, bellows Tregaron. Finished.
Look at that, brilliant.
I spoke a little bit of dragon language there.
I did know. Luckily, I speak dragon, so
that's
it's
okay. I
it's
thought
not
a
a lot
lot
of
of
people
you
do.
would understand it.
Yeah, no, I've got it. So that's brilliant. A little snippet there from Dragon Riders as well. Just quickly, so you mentioned you've got another couple of books, so that you're gonna have these essentially 6 books in total. Yeah. Without giving too much away, but just to keep people kind of like on the edge of their seat. What have you kind of got planned going forward? Yeah,
no, I love it.
I asked that. It's quite a difficult one.
Yeah. So the 2 things people have got to look forward to is in the next book, which is at the moment being called, and I think I might get to keep this title, The Lost Dragon of Raw. The very, very north of Raw is a place called the Deeps, and it's the coldest, darkest, most mysterious place in Raw. And there's a lost dragon that if it isn't found, it will mean disaster for all of Raw. And also there's something I need to do in Raw, and that's my dog, and that's visit Grandad's world. So Grandad has his own world hidden in a jam cupboard, and that's the question I'm asked probably most often by children is, when are we going to get to see inside Grandad's world?
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's beautiful. I really, really love that. That's wonderful. Jenny, listen, we'll be speaking to Jenny a bit more later on, part of the panel, and there'll be a dragon draw along a bit later on. But for now, all the best of luck. It's wonderful to go back to Raw again, Dragon Riders of Raw. So let's put our hands together. Jenny McLachlan, big round of applause. Thank you, Jenny. Speak to you in a minute. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you. So lovely Jenny McLachlan there. Brilliant. Dragon Riders of Raw, obviously wonderful, popular series. Okay, another very popular series is coming up now. So we're going to welcome the there's two writers, co-authors, is it? I think it's called co-authors of this series. Let's welcome the wonderful Jordan Glover. Hello, Jordan. How are you?
Hello. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Good. Nice to see you. So I haven't got the latest one, but they're familiar. So these are the Wonder Team books. So I've got that one. I've got
me too.
This one. It goes weird on my screen, so it's better if you hold it. And I've got this one. But the latest one is, I haven't got the latest one there, have I? What's the latest one up there?
I also don't have the latest one. I'm eagerly awaiting for it to arrive in the post. No, I know. Yeah, so I've only got the first 3 with me at the moment. So the latest one is called the Space Race, the Wonder Team in the Space Race, and that is coming out at the end of this month, at the end of February. So it's not on shelves yet. Yeah.
Coming out soon. These are obviously a very, very popular series. Tell us about how all this came about, because obviously you a very special person you've written these with. Tell us about that partnership, how it came about, and how it's kind of evolved, I guess, since that first book. So I'll hand over to you to tell us a little bit more about that.
Fab. Yeah. Well, it was all very exciting, really. I have always been a writer, really. I've written since I was very young, and always wanted to write a book. And then something wonderful happened, because my cousin, Leah Williamson, who I write these with, she did something rather impressive, and she won the Euros back in 2022, which was an amazing thing. And after that, we decided that there were lots of women throughout history who hadn't had the attention really that they deserved, including lots of women in football. And we thought, you know what, why don't we write about that? Wouldn't it be cool if we could go back in time and meet those women and explore what they did? And that's really how the Wonder Team was born.
That's brilliant. So for this book, the latest one's a space race, as you said, and the 1950s. But obviously, if you're going back in time, there's a lot of history. There's a lot to choose from. So, how did you? So we've been through. Obviously, got the Rainforest book here. We've got the Forgotten Footballers and the Pharaoh's Fortune, the 1950s and the space race. First of all, tell us what the space race was, and then why did you go back to that period? So those who don't know what the space race was, so tell us a bit about that, and why you chose the 1950s for that.
Yeah, sure. So the space race was a bit of a competition, really, between the USA and a place called the USSR, which is also known as the Soviet Union. And that was a collection of lots of countries. One of the biggest ones was Russia, but you had kind of Ukraine, Belarus, they all tied in to make the USSR. And the aim of the game really was to get the first person into space, to be the master of the stars, and it was quite a fierce competition, really. And the reason we decided to go back to that period of time was that, when you learn about the history, really you're learning about all of the great things that those powerful men did to win that race. But actually, behind the scenes, there were a lot of women working on the space race too that we don't hear so much about. Especially women of colour, and we really felt that those women deserved to have their moment in the spotlight. So we wanted to take our trio back to learn about that.
The character in the books is obviously Leah, a version of herself. How much of it must be quite difficult. How much of her personality and sort of values are in the character in the book, or is it kind of a fictional sort of version of it? How much of that is sort of her and not her sort of thing?
Yeah, so this is the question I get quite a lot. This Leah in the book is not very like real life Leah, because we wanted this Leah to be going on that journey where she's learning lessons about herself and about how she interacts with the world. So we tried to make her quite different, so that we could explore her responses to the things that were happening to her. The only thing we really kept in was her love for plain ham sandwiches, which is real life Leah's favourite sandwich. So there are a couple of mentions, I think it might be in the Pharaoh's Fortune, actually, where Leah is unwrapping her plain ham sandwich and taking a big old bite.
Oh, that's really interesting. I got to tell you, I love all sorts of sandwiches, but sometimes just a plain ham sandwich is just, I don't know, in white bread sometimes, plain ham sandwich just hits the spot, doesn't it? So I would agree with that. I'm going to give her a round of applause for that one. So well done for that. You've obviously explored, as I said, you've gone back in time writing these with Leah, but if you could actually go back in time yourself, is there a particular time, maybe not just a time, but something you'd love to see or be at or see? Maybe they can't see you when you go back there, so that kind of gives you a bit of a, you haven't got to be too dragged into it. But is there any particular sort of moment or era that you would love to go back to yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's a really typical answer, but I did history at university as my degree. So it's like asking me to pick my favourite sweet at a pick and mix. But if I had to choose one, I think I would definitely go back to the Tudors, particularly Henry VIII, because I mean, I know the hygiene wasn't fantastic. I'd probably have a few problems with that, but the clothes were amazing. I'd love to experience life at court, all of the drama of Henry and his wives. That would probably be my pick.
I did. Funny enough, I'm actually just reading a book about the Tudors.
Oh, are you?
Fairly grim. Fairly grim.
Yes.
I know. So providing you can, avoid all the nasty bits, it's all.
Yeah, I
it's
probably
all good.
regret my decision once I was there.
So what am I doing? I know. So that's fantastic. Now we've got a couple of school questions for you. So I'll ask you one. Then I know you're going to give us a reading. Then I'll ask the other one after your reading, if that's
Lovely.
okay, Jordan. So this is from Louise, who's a home ed mum, I think, in Lincoln. Why did you use historical settings for your plots? And what are the hardest things about thinking up plot twists? I know you sort of answered that first bit, but anything else you'd like to add to either of those parts of that question?
Great questions. I mean, just to add to the first part of that, like I said, I did history at university, so it's an interest of mine anyway. So especially in that first book, when we were combining the history of going back to 1921 and learning about those female footballers, and actually going back in history, it was like both of mine and Leah's interests coming together, which was great. The hardest thing about thinking up plot twist, that's a great question. For me, it's dripping in enough clues in the first part of the story without giving too many clues that you can easily guess it. You want to get to that plot twist at the end and have everybody go, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming. But then more they think about it, they think, oh, actually, no, I did see that coming because this happened and this happened. That's really hard to get that balance right, but it's also really fun as well.
That's great. Thanks for your question, Louise. From that, actually, let's answer the other school question. Let's have a reading. So let's just do that. So this is from Lucy Fields Primary School in Godalming. What do you do if you are finding it tricky to think of what to write next? I find cake always works for me, but what do you do?
I love a bit of cake.
I know.
So interestingly, if I'm finding it tricky to write something, my first response is to read something. So when I am writing a new Wonder Team book, I'll very often have a book on the go at the same time that's sort of catered towards the same age. So if I get to a bit and I think, oh gosh, I don't know where to go next, I take a bit of a step back, I'll go and make myself a cup of tea, and then I'll sit down and I'll immerse myself in somebody else's writing, in somebody else's world for 20, 30 minutes. And then I find that when I go back, I'm refreshed, like I've been creatively topped up.
That's a good bit of advice. It also sort of breaks that kind of thing when you're like, your brain's going, oh, I can't do it anymore. And then you just look at someone else's work. That's great. Okay, so we hand over to you. You can give us a little reading. Is this, so I presume this isn't from the latest one, because obviously you haven't got that.
No. So I am going to read to you from the third one. So just to give you an idea of what's happening, Leah and her friends, Mimi and George, have already been back in time twice, and their last journey into 19th century Egypt was a bit of a scary one. It was a bit dangerous. So George isn't super enthusiastic about going back in time again. And at the start of this one, a new girl has just joined their football team, and she's very, very good. And Leah is feeling a little bit self-conscious. She's worrying that perhaps this new girl, Ao, is going to be better than she is. So to make herself feel better, she's decided that they need to go back in time again. And this is just before that they do. Think how exciting it'll be. Don't you want to know where the watch will send us? George let out a little growl of frustration. You're being stupid, he huffed. This isn't like you, Elle. Is this all because of that training session? No, Leah replied too quickly. It's got nothing to do with that. I'm just bored. I want another adventure. That's all. Who says it's even going to work? George demanded. You know that thing has a mind of its own. We tried for months last time and it didn't do anything. Oh, Mimi said. That's a good point, George. I hadn't thought of that. Exactly, George replied, nodding urgently. The watch always sends us back for a reason, and I don't think that you being bored is a very good reason, Elle. We could at least try, Leah said, desperation tinging her words. But George's expression was firm as he shook his head. Even Mimi looked uncertain now. Frustration surged in Leah's stomach. Her entire body felt restless, like bees were buzzing inside of her. The events of the training session ran through her mind in a seemingly endless loop, and she knew one way or another she needed to get out of here. She couldn't face an entire afternoon of lessons, especially if she had to hear one more word about how amazing Ao was. The watch was her escape. It seemed to hum in her hand as if it knew her thoughts, like it wanted her to use it. Leah's lips were set in a thin, determined line as she snapped the box lid shut and shoved it into her bag, the pocket watch still in her hand. Elle, what are you doing? Mimi said, frowning. Leah didn't answer her. Her eyes locked on the wall clock. Both hands were millimetres away from hitting 12. Leah's own hands tightened on the watch. She didn't have long. George's gaze flicked to the clock too, and understanding filled his face. Leah, don't, he cried. Just wait. But Leah was tired of waiting. Waiting on the bench, waiting for someone better to take her place, waiting for her friends to replace her. Her heart hummed with the need to get out of the library and go somewhere she was needed, somewhere she could make a difference. A shrill ringing filled the library as the bell sounded, signalling the start of lunch. At the same time, the two hands on the clock jerked into position beneath the number 12. Leah's thumb descended towards the watch's crown. With a shout, Mimi and George lunged towards her. They grasped onto Leah's arms as she pressed the crown twice. Around them, the bookshelves began to swirl and melt into each other as the library's colours ran like paint on a canvas. Leah, Mimi and George pitched forward as the floor fell out beneath them, sending them spiralling into the vortex of time. And there they are.
Let's go. Into the vortex of time, into Tudor England with you. Oh, no,
all the bad hygiene.
I know, all the bad hygiene. We just got a quick question, a live chat question. This is from Miss Khan. Thank you, Miss Khan, and your class. How did you decide what would be your main idea in the planning stage? I guess of any of the books, but maybe the latest one.
So we spend quite a lot of time talking about what era of history we want to focus on, and that is mainly decided by the women that we want to focus on and the women that we want to showcase. So what that tends to look like is lots of messages back and forward between Leah and myself, where we're throwing ideas around. But actually, what tends to happen between the books is that we both just keep our eyes out for anything that catches our interest. And then we might say, oh, do you know what? I saw a really good documentary for the Wonder Team and the Pharaoh's Fortune. Our other cousin recommended a documentary on Egypt where a female archaeologist travelled by train along the Nile, and that was the spark for this one. And with this one, I watched I don't know if anyone watches this, Portrait Artist of the Year, and the winner gets to paint a portrait, and the person they were painting this time was Jane Goodall. So that sparked that one. And with the space race, I watched the film Hidden Figures for the first time. And
I haven't seen that. I know it's going to be an amazing film, isn't it?
Yes, fantastic.
Listen, Jordan, so the Wonder Team and the Space Race is out. When was it again? What date?
It's the 25th of February.
25th of February. The other books, of course, are available now. And Jordan will be joining us again later on for our kind of little panel chat at the end. But for now, round of applause. Thank you very much, Jordan Glover. Thanks very much, Jordan. Thank you. Okay, so we have one more guest for you. We are going slightly over time, so we probably finish about 10 past 12, not 5 past 12, but that's usual. You know that. So let's welcome this is only a proof copy, but I think Jordan's got Jacob's got the proper copy. The Ice Apprentices. Welcome to Mr Dilly Meets Jacob North. Hello, Jacob.
Hello.
How are you? Okay,
great.
Nice,
yeah, lovely to be here.
Nice. Well, no, it's great to have you back. And it's so listen, Jacob. This is I think I've got this right. This is your debut book. Is that right? How does that feel?
Oh, it feels amazing. I mean, I've been writing for a really, really long time, and I always will be writing. I love writing.
Yeah.
But getting to actually work with people and edit on it and see it out in bookshops, yeah, it's unreal. And I do have the.
There we go. There you go. Look, hold it up a bit closer. It's a beautiful cover, isn't it?
I think it's gorgeous.
So
I'm so pleased with it.
Mine's a bit blank, but that's really, really good. I'm sure the children watching and the teachers watching as well would be interested. Being a debut author, how did that sort of? You said you've always been writing, but how did that kind of come about? Was that a long process, or how does that work for any children? Maybe I don't even at their age would like to get a book or a story published at some point. How did that work for you? I hand over to you to tell us.
For me, I decided that I would first try traditional publishing and then maybe look into other options if that didn't happen. So to do that, you first need an agent. So I sent off lots of different emails to lots of different agents, which have some sample chapters, a little bit of information about me, what the book is. And you try and say as well, like, it's a bit like this book that's already out on the shelves, or it's a bit like this book. And then the agents receive a lot of these emails, and they'll be looking through them and seeing if there's anything that they like, or if anything that they're missing from their current collection of people they work with that they want to bring in. I think I sent off to somewhere between 80 and 90 different agents. And if you ask lots of different authors, you'll get lots of different answers as to how many agents you send off to. But once I got my agent, then my agent sends the book off to a publisher, and then again, publishers. There's lots of different publishers, and it might take a while. It might be really quick. In my case, it was quite quick, which was really nice. But some people, it might take a couple months. Yeah.
Well, was it that quick in terms of so once they sent it off? How long did it take you then to sort of get that kind of the one that you wanted? You know, the publisher that you wanted. You know, the deal that you wanted, or the rest of it. How long was that? How long was that?
Oh, it was so quick. I think it was under a week. I was expecting. I think like months was what I was kind of happy to wait for. But yeah, like a week.
Well, I congratulate you. That's amazing. Lovely feeling that. Isn't that a wonderful thing? So Ice Apprentices introduces the readers to a stunning chilly sort of fantasy world. What inspired you to sort of create this world and sort of this icy setting of tundra and stuff? You know, why an icy world? Why that? What would that kind of speak to you to sort of set it all there? So I had to tell us a little bit more about, the setting and why that.
Well, whenever I start a new project, I always want to fill that story with things that I really, really love and I'm really interested in. And when I was beginning Ice Apprentices, I have and always have had a love of winter, snow, cabins, log fires, pine trees, all of that. I love that kind of a setting. I love how that looks. I love that sort of weather. So I wanted to write a story where it's cold all the time, it's snowing all the time. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, why not make that a big part of how that world works? How do you grow food when there is so much cold everywhere and the ground's going to be really hard packed? How do you stay warm? All of these questions helped me build the setting as I thought how this culture is going to survive in such a harsh environment.
I would agree with that. I love the winter. My favorite days actually are the sort of the cold, wintry, sunshine days. But the sort of crisp, beautiful. I love that. Oswin Fields is your main character. I suppose your main hero. What qualities do you think make him sort of stand out as a hero? The way that you sort of written him and stuff. So tell us a little bit about him and that. So I'll hand over to tell us a bit about the main character.
Well, one thing about Oswin Fields is that in Tundra, and that's the name of this last human settlement, he is the only person who wasn't born there. He was actually found on the ice surrounding the settlement and taken in. And that means he's what's called a stray. So some people think that he is a waste of food, a waste of resources. And he's been told that growing up. So he really has this desperate want to prove that he's not a waste. He is going to be helpful. He's useful for survival. Which means that when he goes to this magic school in the settlement and wants to start attacking, he's going to do everything, including risk his own life, to figure out why. He's also very, very nosy, frankly. So on top of wanting to prove himself, he's also desperate to just understand. He asks lots and lots of questions, and he's always putting his nose into things. So those combined mean he's going to dig around and find out.
He's a great character, really, really good character. I love the name as well. That's a good name, isn't it? I don't know if I know anyone called Oswin. I know anyone called Oz. It's a great name, though. Really, really good name. So obviously fantasy stories are about, well, they transport readers to obviously new worlds or kind of a different take on our own world in that sort of sense. What's your favorite part of world building for yourself? What do you enjoy the whole thing? Do you like the writing of it? I mean, what's your favorite part of trying to put all that together? Or do you have a favorite part?
I think my favorite part would be, I always start with one central idea. So for Ice Apprentices, it was that cold setting, and everything builds around trying to stay true to that first idea. So we've got our cold setting, which makes it difficult to survive. So everything I add on to it is always themed back to this being cold and being hard to survive, and what would be the result of that. And I've done this with other worlds as well, where I just have one idea. This is the theme I want, and everything builds out from that. And it's that building that is my favorite part, because you slowly discover, by always going back to that core idea, how would this work? What would we do here? What would the people be like? And I find that really fun.
And how do you do that? Just be an interesting sort of a process from the children watching who want to write their own stories. Different authors obviously do it in different ways, from post-it notes to note cards to brainstorming to those the things I can't remember they're called. Is that brainstorming? You put the thing in the middle and all the little strands go off it. How do you do it yourself? How do you sort of plan that in that sense?
I have a real mixture of things. I'm quite unorganized about it, I'll be honest with you. I've got lots of different notebooks like this, which are just filled with scribbled ideas. And then also I've got lots of digital documents, which just have some thoughts written down. I've got notes on my phones. I've got all these sketches I do as well, lots of stuff. And then sometimes when it's like, oh, I had an idea, where was it? I'll have to spend like a good 20 minutes going through everything, trying to find it.
Well, that's interesting and encouraging, because we all find different routes in and how we sort of, you know, put something together. I've got a question with the live chat, and I've got a couple of school questions for you, and I know you're going to give us a little reading as well. So this is from Reedley Primary. Thank you for your question, sending that in. What is the hardest part of writing and being an author? Now you are an author. What is the hardest part of it, or maybe coming up with future books in that sense?
That's a really good question. I mean, I love pretty much everything about being an author, so it's really hard to pick what the hardest thing would be. I would say right now it's balancing writing new things in the series. So I'm working on book 2, but I'm also working on some other books later on, along with current things I need to do with book 1 or editing book 2, whilst I'm also trying to write on book 3 and book 4, whatever. So balancing all of those and going back between different parts in the story where things have changed quite a bit is quite difficult to get that in your head.
I bet it is. You thought, what am I doing today? I forgot where I was. But I think that's sort of that is a general sort of process of, you know, especially writing more in a trilogy or several books at once, isn't it? So let's have another. We got a couple of questions sent in for you, Jacob, before the show. Here we go. So you kind of mentioned this a bit already. Barnum CEVC Primary School, Suffolk. Thank you for your question, Barnum. What has been your biggest inspiration for your stories? Obviously, you mentioned your childhood book earlier on, but was there something, and your love of winter and stuff, but is there anything else that kind of brought all that together in this book?
I think my biggest inspiration has just been fantasy middle grade books as a whole. I read a lot of them. I'm talking Scandal, Crookhaven. I still read Warrior Cats to this day. They're still releasing books and they're so good. I love middle grade fantasy books. And when I was younger, I wanted to read middle grade fantasy books that had certain representation. I wanted to see myself in the characters. And it wasn't always that easy to find on the shelf. So part of the inspiration, I guess, is to write stories like that, but with characters that I can see myself in terms of who I am.
Yeah, absolutely. But which what we said is the one of stories and storytelling and storytelling week, and you know we find ourselves and find about other people, and that's the wonder of it. I'm gonna hand over to you now. Give us a little reading from this. Tell us a little bit of context about it, and you can now jump in to the icy world of Ice Apprentices with Jacob. So I'll hand over to you, Jacob, for that now. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, I'm actually going to start with chapter 1 because I actually think I'm quite proud of this chapter. I think it's a good place to start. The first step of growing a log was to plant splinters. Oswin Fields could have thought it the most difficult step. After all, the ground of the produce field was hard packed below the snow. But the second step was also difficult, lugging the logs, now grown to the surface, to the barn. It left his scrawny limbs sweaty and his white face flushed peach pink. The third step, to magically charge the logs by tucking them under duvets, reading them bedtime stories, or making ticking noises while moving his hands like a clock, was more amusing than difficult. By the time the fourth step arrived, and Oswin rolled the completed logs onto a rickety cart, he barely had the strength to kick the wheels to start the self-moving charm. He'd stand, his sickly lungs huffing, as the cart rattled along iron tracks towards central tundra. 13 years of life, and all he'd seen was the produce field. Rows of logs and stretching snow were burned into the backs of his eyelids. He'd watched the cart, weighed by the fact the timber would see more than he ever would. It was that step, unquestionably, that was the hardest.
Brilliant, thank you very much, and a great introduction to the book there. We have a question for you. You've sort of answered this, but I like. I'm going to put the school up. The main reason being, although you've answered the question, is because my son went to this primary school. So there we go. So I'm putting this up. This is Harlan's Primary School. Hello, Harlan's Primary School in Haywards Heath. What was your favourite book series when aged about 8? Well, you said about the Wonder Cat series. Was there anything else at all that sort of grabbed it? Maybe earlier than that. Maybe earlier.
I quite like Beast Quest.
I
think Beast Quest was great, and there's another one I want to mention. I've forgotten what it's called, but it was about these magical fairies, and each book was about a different type. Like one was like the Christmas fairy, one was the summer fairy, something like that. I also like those books as well. So I read Beast Quest and those, I think, when I was around 8 years old.
Beast Quest, there were about 10,000 books in Beast Quest, isn't it? So you need too many. So it's good. Jacob, listen, thank you so much. Ice Apprentices is out now.
Yes, it was out last Thursday.
So it's on the bookshelves now, and you get the lovely illustration one and not the proof one. So that's out now. Jacob will be joining us for a little panel chat in a moment, but we have coming up a draw along with Jenny McLachlan. Get your pens and papers ready. But for now, join me. Round of applause. It's Jacob North. Thanks, Jacob. Speak to you in a minute. Thank you so much. Thank you. So Jacob North here, Ice Apprentices, out for your reading pleasure now. And thank you for your questions you've been sending them in. So let's go back to Jenny McLachlan for a wonderful draw along. Welcome back, Jenny. How are you going?
Hi.
Fantastic. So I hand over straight to you, and you can
Yeah.
tell everyone what you're doing. So this is Jenny. Get your pens and papers ready.
Let's do
for a draw
this.
on.
Okay, so I am a fan of dragons. This is the book plate that I use if somebody wants to sign a copy of my book. So I drew this dragon here. Now, as you can see, it's very, very detailed. So when I sign books in schools, I can't draw dragons with lots and lots of scales and like that. So I've developed a cartoon dragon that I draw when I sign books, and that's what I'm going to teach you to draw. Now, obviously, my piece of paper is massive. But imagine it's the same roughly as yours if you've got an A4 one. Now, what's quite good is it's going to be a bit harder if you try and draw your dragon this way around, because it's going to have a really long nose. So it might be better if you draw it this way around. Landscape, is that the technical term? I'm not sure. Sideways on. Okay, but you just draw it smaller if not. It doesn't matter. Whatever you do, they're all going to look different. They're all going to look cool. Trust me. Trust me. Okay. The first thing you need to do, we're going to start with the eyes. I once drew 500 of these dragons in a row, so I can only draw it in a certain direction. So I have to go that way. The first thing I start with is a circle over one side. Okay. Doesn't matter if it's a nice, neat circle or not, a circle. And then coming out of the top of that circle, we do a sort of another one. It's like a semicircle. So a circle with another one growing out of it like that. And these are going to be the dragon's bulging eyes. And it will make more sense when I put the pupils in. There we go. And the dragon at the moment is looking up to one side. And then I go on a journey a long way away from the eyes, all the way over here. And I draw 2 more dots like this. Now, at this point, this is when they all start to look a bit different. Your dots might be going that way or that way. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And you're going to do 2 bumps over the top of the dots. These are the nostrils, and we're going to just draw 2 bumps over the top. The other day I was drawing this, and a student said, like a bottom. And I thought, well, yes, it is probably a bit like a bottom that's upside down, but I'm going to stick with 2 bumps, nostril bumps over the top of the holes. And then from the very top of one, you draw a line back to that eyeball. Okay. Not sure where you're up to. Hopefully, sometimes when people do that line, they end up here or up here. It looks a bit strange. I think it looks good. I think they look good when they all look a bit different. I think it's fun that way. And then underneath, you can see this line here has got nothing underneath it. So put your pen there. And we go all the way back. We go back towards the eye, but don't join up with the eye. Again, if you have joined up with the eye, that's fine. It just looks like your dragon smiling really, really big. Okay. So we've got this lovely line here. This is the bottom of the dragon's mouth. And now this is your chance to choose what its teeth are going to be like. So you could just do a couple. Maybe you just do one there, one there, one there. Personally, I'm a fan of multiple jaggedy teeth. So I like my favourite bit. When I do this in schools, I do it really, really fast. And I've always got a teacher thinking, this is taking her ages. And it is. Then, from around the bottom of one of these teeth, which is up near the eye, I draw a line down there. So that makes the bottom of the dragon's neck. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, Jenny, that doesn't look like a dragon. It looks either like a whippet or a cow all joined together. Wait till we finished. Wait till we finish, because now we're going to draw the spikes. Now, it depends how much room you've got. I quite like making my spikes wobbly. You don't have to. These are the horns coming out of the dragon's head at the top. And then we have the other side of its neck going down. Also looks a bit like Santa's little helper from The Simpsons, I think. And then the final thing you need to do, well, it's not the final thing, we're going to put spikes on its back. Again, this makes it more dragony. Sometimes I give it a couple of sort of paws down there. You can add a few things now. You can customize your dragon while you're listening to us talking. You could add scales down the dragon's back. I never have time when I'm signing books to add scales, but sometimes children add them afterwards. Maybe you want to give your dragon eyelashes. Perhaps you want to make smoke come out of your dragon's nose. When I'm signing books, I put the person's name I'm writing signing the book to inside the puff of smoke. And then it looks like the dragon's almost thinking about you. Maybe you want to think what the dragon's thinking about in that last puff of smoke. This dragon is thinking about, it's very greedy for gold. It's going to be a dragon greedy for for gold. So I'm going to draw a nugget of gold in this one's. But you can do whatever you like. Maybe your dragon's thinking about cake. That'd be quite nice. Ooh, gold. The greedy dragon. And there we are.
That's
I
wonderful.
wonder what yours look like.
I did it. Do you know what? You read
You
my
do
mind.
it, Mr. Dilly.
No, look, I put in mine. I put cake.
Hey, look at that.
No.
It worked. Mr. Billy.
Mr. Billy. I used to be Mr. Billy. I changed it to Billy. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, what a burn. You did your spikes on the back better than mine.
You look at that.
Look at that. I'm going to adopt that.
Always think of cake. It makes you feel better, I find. It's kind of a good thing. So that's great, Jenny. Thank you so much. So I hope, if your drawings, by the way, if you want to show them, do put them up on the old X and Instagram, teachers and all the rest of it, and I'll comment and all the rest of it. I'm sure Jenny would as well. So do show us those drawings as well.
I'd love to see them.
That'd be brilliant. So, and then you can colour them in and do whatever you want with them. That's brilliant. So let's welcome back. We're nearly there. So if you're still with us, brilliant. We'll probably be about another 5 or so, nearly 10, not that long minutes. Let's welcome back, if I don't choke, Jacob and Jordan. Hello, welcome back again. And we're just going to have a little chat and hopefully inspire you all watching, children, about stories, why they're important, and how we, I guess, we'll find ourselves and other people in them, and learn all these new things. So let's start with you, Jenny, and Jacob and Jordan. You can jump in and speak about this as well. So why do you think that stories can help children explore who they are really and the kind of people they want to become, I guess? What do you think the power of stories is in that?
I suppose I'm thinking from my own experience when I was little.
Yeah.
I felt I was very shy, I was very quiet, and stories let me experience things without actually doing them myself, as almost a rehearsal for doing them. And I never felt lonely as long as I had a book on the go. I never felt like I didn't have a friend if I had a book on the go. That was my friend. And I think that's probably why I wanted to be a writer, because books were just the most amazing thing in my life. And I know not everyone listening will see books in that way. They might see them as something they're made to read, and they don't enjoy it. But there will be one somewhere out there that they will read that will make them think, and they'll understand. Yeah.
And that's what you all spoke about earlier on. Jacob, what about yourself? Was there anything particular thought about that as well?
I think stories are just so important for building all sorts of different experiences and understandings, as well as just being fun. I mentioned earlier how it's really nice to read a book where you see yourself somewhere in the characters, especially if they're just having an adventure and you're just like, oh yeah, they're just people having adventures. I love when it's just a fantasy adventure and there's lots of drama going on and there's all these sorts of different characters. It lets you experience, as Jenny was saying, all these sorts of different things in fiction first. And it's lovely.
That's what's wonderful. Jordan, anything to add to either of those, or just agree with both of those?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree, but I also think, when you're younger and you're reading stories, your life can feel quite small, and the things you experience can feel quite small. And I think that when you pick up a book and you find something in it that really speaks to you, that's the point where you start building your dreams for the rest of your life, really. You might read about somebody that goes to Japan and has an amazing time, and then suddenly you have this ambition to go to Japan that didn't exist before, and it's something that you might well then do when you're older. And I think just having that exposure to those sorts of experiences allows you to see what can be possible with your own life.
Absolutely, really, really good advice. I think the other thing is that there will be children watching that maybe aren't big readers or haven't found that book yet. And for me speaking, I always sort of love books, but I was just talking earlier to someone earlier, and I don't think when I was younger, I was a big reader, but oddly, but I did English when I got older at school, at secondary school, and had to read the books then, which kind of oddly put me off reading a little bit. But what happened is that all the things that you just said there, as I've got older, those books have become an incredible companion and friend to me. I know it sounds sort of odd, but you know what I mean. And you find yourself again in them. So it doesn't matter even if you're a child and not, they're there throughout the rest of your life. That can be an amazing thing to sort of discover things about yourself and other people in. as well. So it's echoing what you all just said. On that note, how do you think that stories help us kind of connect to each other as human beings? Well, not just as human beings, with our family and friends. Thinking about kids in schools, how can they help us do that? So let's go with Jordan again for that. So how can they help us do that? So just think about the children in the school. Maybe some are having problems with friendships or family issues or whatever. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that obviously the joy of a good story is that it does often not take you on an adventure, but fundamentally it's also about relationships between people and the way that we interact with people. And I think it's a wonderful thing if you're experiencing something in your life, and actually, Jacob, this echoes a little bit what you were talking about seeing yourself in a story. If a character you're reading about is experiencing something that you're having trouble with, it's lovely to then see how they navigate, and also to be able to think, oh, you know what, I know exactly what that feels like, but I really like the way they've dealt with that. Maybe I could try it that way. And perhaps it's an approach you hadn't thought about taking before, and suddenly there's this solution that you'd never considered that's come to you as a byproduct of reading an amazing book.
That's brilliant. That's really brilliant advice. So, Jacob, what about yourself? Do you echo that or anything to add to that? That's really amazing.
Yeah, definitely agree with what Jordan was saying. I think another thing is that I think this definitely, stories in general, especially books, but stories in general, they can build communities, which can then get you friendships and get you to meet new people you wouldn't have otherwise. I'm going to go back to Warrior Cats again, because there's such, as Jenny was saying, like it spreads through a school because it's so amazing. I had some amazing friendships, which I think happened because we both liked Warrior Cats and started talking about the books we were reading and which one are you on? Have you got to this part yet? And that built friendships, which I think otherwise just might not have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. What about yourself, Jenny?
Well, I agree with what other authors have said, but can I go and answer a different kind of question? Can I tweak it?
Yes, you can. Yes.
I was just going to say that sometimes the comfort that you get from a book, or that lovely, great feeling you come from a book, it might not be a fiction book. It might be a non-fiction book. They've been told, their stories that are being told. And I had a friend once, and I was always going on about how much I love books, reading. And she kept trying to read the books I liked and saying, oh, I don't like it. And then years later, she got in touch, she said, I found out why I didn't like the books you liked. She said, I like non-fiction. That's what I like.
I would agree. I would agree with that. I mean, Jordan was talking earlier about history, and I do lots of history stuff with the schools and read a lot of history. And what I find out about history, and this is the wonderful thing about history and reading and non-fiction as well, is that you find out a lot of things. People look differently, they're dressed differently, but a lot of the things and problems we've all had, people have always had, and in all different situations, and it makes you. This is for all the children watching. If you're having a bad day or a bad week or the rest of it, it makes you think, you're not alone. People have had these problems and thought like this since the first human beings around a campfire. And I think for history, kind of, in one way you can think, why don't people ever learn we're in the situation again? But another way you can take great comfort in that, because you just sort of think, well, people have been here before and things carry on, and I can carry on and I can get through this myself. So I think the wonder of history and non-fiction in that sense, putting it to real events, is really, really powerful as well. So thank you for that. We're going to have a couple more questions, and I know we're sort of short of time. To echo something I said earlier, if a child watching today wants to, I don't know, maybe write their own story or tell their own story, they might want to write a fantasy story or something, but tell their own story, but doesn't know where to start. What advice could you give for them as the best way to begin? So let's go back to you, Jenny, to kick that off. And obviously you've all got your own methods, but any advice for the children?
Well, I think that I used to try and write books when I was younger, and I always thought I couldn't do it because I found it so hard, because it's really hard. It's a bit like thinking, I'd like to go for a run. I'm going to run a marathon, and you leave the house and you try and run 26 miles and you'll feel sick. You'll never want to do it again. So I think that what I would do, if you want to write a book, if you do want to write, go for it. But a lot of writing the book is thinking about it and daydreaming and playing and drawing the pictures, as we've all said today. So just start collecting ideas. And if you do want to write, just write the most exciting bits. Sorry, my tumble dryer's going.
Like about a tumble dryer going. It's a good way to start. The tumble dryer was spinning and Jenny McLachlan was
into it.
That's brilliant. Jacob, what about you? Any thoughts on that?
I would say if like me, you just want to write for fun because it's really fun, then write for fun. Don't worry about what words you're putting on the page. Don't worry if you're like, oh no, this doesn't sound good, or what, but just keep going. Ignore any thoughts of maybe I should change it. No, just keep writing, have fun with it, get lost in that story you're creating. You can worry about the grammar and the spelling later, or if that felt too over the top or too under the top or whatever. Just keep writing and have fun.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant advice. And Jordan, what about yourself?
Yeah, very similar to Jacob there. I think, I mean,
Jordan's
I know for me personally.
Internet's gone. Or my internet's gone. Something's gone.
I can hear.
Can anyone see me and hear me okay?
Yes.
I can see him.
Everything's frozen up.
Of the joys of technology.
Maybe my internet's dropped. I'm not quite sure. Hold on.
I'll
if you can hear me and see me, that's great. Are we all back? We all there? Could you hear me and see me then?
Yes.
We could.
You could. I don't know what happened then. You all completely froze and I was going. I thought, that's a bit odd. But we're all still here. That's good.
I
that's
like the panic
Jordan.
on your face.
Suddenly you just sort of stopped. And I thought, I've asked Jordan an awkward question and you just sort of froze. I
don't know the
answer. I realised you all froze. Don't ask me that. Okay, yeah, Jordan. So go off you go. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say really to just echo essentially what Jacob said. I mean, I don't know about a lot of you, but I have a really terrible habit of trying to be a perfectionist, and I want the first go to be perfect. And I've learned that that's absolutely rubbish, because when you actually write a book, you never publish the first go. The first go is always, no one ever sees the first go. So once you've done the first go, that's when you start making it really good. So you can't have a book if you don't have something there to start with in the first place. So you've got to write it to then be able to make it better.
It's always that first bit, isn't it? Looking at the sheet of paper, like doing a drawing, doing anything, you think, what do I start with? But as Jacob said, and great advice to Jenny as well, once you start, you just sort of just let it all out, and you'd be amazed what your brain comes up with as well. It's quite incredible. We could talk all day, but obviously children are in their schools. They've got to go off to lunch, whatever they got to do. National Storytelling Week 2025. We're in the middle of it now. So take all our authors' advice. Try writing your own stories, maybe about yourself or something simple or a world you've always wanted to create. But just have fun and just, let it all out on the page. You'll never know what you're going to come up with. And thank you very much. So Jenny McLachlan, always a pleasure to speak to you. Good luck with Dragon Riders of Raw is out now. We have the wonderful Wonder Team books and the fourth one, not here, but it will be there very, very soon coming out. And we, of course, have Ice Apprentices also out now for your reading pleasure. So let's give each other a big round of applause. Big round of applause. And give each other a big wave. Jenny, lovely to see you again. Thank you very much. Give us a big wave. Jacob, lovely to meet you. And good luck, Jacob, with your debut book. Jordan, lovely to meet you as well. Big wave. And thank you very much. Give each other a big round of applause. And we're all here. Thank you so much. Thank you. Cheers, Jordan. Thank you, Jenny. And thank you, Jacob. Weren't they wonderful guests? Hope you're giving you lots of ideas and inspiration for that. Thank you very much for joining me today. Enjoy National Storytelling Week. Stories are something that connects us all together. It's a huge part of who we are, whatever age we're out of being human beings. You want to know more about yourself and about other people and other cultures and other backgrounds and other worlds and never feel alone again. Find yourself a book. If you haven't found it yet, the right story, don't worry about it. You will some point someday, whether that's fiction or non-fiction, as Jenny says. And my name is Mr. Dilly. It's always a joy to be with you. Thank you very much for all my guests today. And goodbye, my friends. It's goodbye from me as usual, and it's goodbye from me. Thank you very much. Goodbye.